Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Oof. That was something. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick in the 5 Reasons Sports. I've been locked in a room here. I hope it's padded. Greg Sylvander, tonight's floor plan. I'm just going to read a stat. This is from our guy, Matt Hannafin. We recommend you follow him. He's one of our playback hosts. Also, thanks to Tim Reynolds for joining us on playback tonight. That actually passed some of the time. At MPH_824_. Matt's got to shorten that. After taking an 11-3 lead, the Miami Heat were outscored 133-89 in the final 44 minutes. That's insane, man. It didn't feel that close, Greg.
I'm at a loss. And this is like 2 games now in a row where they've looked at a loss themselves, frankly. A 36-point loss at home to the Utah Jazz. We're a 6-win team coming into tonight at home, looking just inept on defense against not only Indiana, but now Utah. It was just an ugly game. You end up giving up 19 3-point field goal makes to your 9. You're never going to win in that kind of atmosphere. And here's the other key stat. They were outshot by over 20 field goals against Indiana, just sheer shots at the basket. Tonight, the Jazz got up 100 shots. Miami got up 80. You're going to lose games when you take 20 less shots than your opponent. And they got to stop the bleeding, because this looks like a situation where this is obviously hanging over this team, the Jimmy situation that I don't think we should necessarily focus this show on, but it is relevant, and they need this road trip. I think that actually this is something that will help them getting away from that building, getting away from their own fans, and kind of banding together on the road trip. That's what you have to hope for, because this was awful.
I'm going to read some Spoelstra quotes, but first I want to Alex put them up on Off the Floor. Again, we always tell you subscribe to Off the Floor. Link is right here in the description. It's where the Heat conversation goes on all night. In fact, as we speak, they're doing a stage show. We're starting to do live stage shows right after the game, so we appreciate Matt and Eternal jumping on there. I'll get to Spoelstra's comments in a second, but I just want to be clear on this. I checked this right before the game. The Heat, in games that Jimmy Butler has missed this year, and I'm not talking about half-assed it, played but half-assed it, which was a handful of them, including his 2 most recent. In games that he's just flat out missed, the Heat were 5-5 coming into this game. Okay, so I know that the victory laps are being done by, his entourage and all the rest of that stuff tonight, because I saw some of this stuff on Twitter, even though somebody promised they'd never tweet again and actually promised a higher being that he wouldn't, and then went out and tweeted. But they were 5-5. Okay. So I'm not saying that they didn't miss Jimmy tonight. Obviously, we're going to talk about that as they go forward. And if the team continues to look awful, then obviously it's going to continue to make certain people, in the front office and others look bad. There's no way around it. Okay. I mean, obviously, it looks like Jimmy says, the whole Elmo thing where everything's on, the GIF for the meme or the GIF or whatever meme or whatever it is you call it, like where everything's burning because Elmo caught. Yeah, it's going to look like that with Jimmy. But again, they were 5-5. Okay. Like they found a way to play 500 basketball without him coming into today. This was different. This was against a tanking team, although they do have a decent starting 5 for a tanking team. But a tanking team in your building, like this looked like a team that is seriously affected by what's going on right now. I'm not saying that they have the talent without whoever they're going to ultimately acquire for Jimmy, if they acquire somebody, to be a great team this year. They don't, okay? But this was more than just that, okay? I mean, this is And I'll get to Spoelstra's comments here. Sorry, I dropped my phone. But I mean, let's just start here, okay? I mean, who's the player of the game? Well, who's not? Okay. Well, we're going to do that one in a second because I know who that's going to be. And a lot of this is going to fall on him now. But let me read some of Spoelstra's comments, okay? I don't think we make any excuses for this. We just took it on the chin. We have to get to work. I want our guys to rest up and get our collective minds ready for a great opportunity to grow on this road trip. There wasn't a whole lot we did well. It was with our purpose or with energy or toughness tonight. Utah was extremely good. We have work to do on the road trip. On the rebounding, our inability to contain the ball. I'm looking at the rebounding. They were out rebounded 57-32.
Unreal. Where
played, by the way, 57-32, 16 offensive rebounds to 5. If you didn't know better, just look at the stat sheet, you would think the team quit. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm saying that's what it looks like statistically. Our inability to contain the ball was a bigger factor regardless of what they were running. It usually starts with our point of attack defense. Well, they don't have Drew Smith anymore either. That's not a Jimmy thing. We got to be much better there. I think it is important for our team to spend some time together and focus on a big task. We have to get that spirit ready for what's ahead. I also want to be clear on this. Greg, I wasn't there for pregame, but when Spoelstra spoke pregame, before a question could be asked, PR staff told the reporters there that Spo would not be taking questions about Jimmy. So again, they're going to just try to compartmentalize this thing, okay? And they're not going to be able to do it forever. All right. Now they are going to some cities on the West Coast like Sacramento where they won't get a lot of questions. Golden State, though, there might be two games at the end in LA, especially if Jimmy's not traded by then, or right before the suspension ends. LA media probably will press them on this stuff a little bit. So they're not going to be able to escape completely, but they'll get away from us. Okay. And they kind of set the boundary tonight. And then they went out and played like absolute shit. And so it's problematic, in a lot of different ways. And again, I know that victory laps are going to be taken, but I just want to be clear. They were 5-5 without him this year. And in a lot of games, he didn't play that well or that engaged, and they still found a way to compete. Tonight, they did not compete. Okay. So I don't know if it's in their heads. We'll get to the worst player of the game is what we're going to do tonight. Okay, not the best player. But Greg, do you think that's it? Do you think that's it? Do you think this, from what you watched tonight, are they just because they're not this bad? They're not lose to Utah by 36 bad at home. They're not.
No, and also the Indiana game. Like I know that Indiana can get hot at times, but they looked helpless on defense in both games. And I just think that they've reached a point where I tweeted out an interview that Naveen Ganglani, another guy, one of our contributors, tweeted about where Bam was getting questions earlier at shoot around today. And he just looked deflated. It just looked like a situation that was awkward. And it just, he talked a lot about his responsibilities as a captain, came out and had one of the worst games I feel like he's played in a long time. Like this was bad by Bam. And so you're in a weird spot where like your captain is kind of not really playing up to potential. Jimmy is out of pocket now. The team is losing. They're in a weird space. And I mean, even Tim, who popped onto our playback, said that the energy in the building was weird today. And I just think that probably translates all the way down to these guys. And it showed itself and manifested in a 36-point loss at home to like a listless Utah team. It's unbelievable that this, even the worst Heat teams usually would claw their way to closer games than this.
Let's get to the player of the game, and I say that sarcastically.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
All right, so Nikola Jovic led the team with 17. He actually looked pretty decent early. He went 7-14. He was kind of a surprise starter. It's also a surprise that Terry Rozier was in the starting lineup. He was not good. 0-5. We need to start devoting more pods that direction. Anyway. Jovic was the leading scorer. Duncan scored 16 off the bench. He was 6 of 12. Hero was 4 of 12, not Tyler's best night. 1 of 8 from 3, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. Again, his body of work this year has been really good. Tonight was not a good night. But I'm sorry, we got to go to Bam. We have to. There's just no way around it. I thought as good as his performance was and the way he handled the media, his performance on the court tonight was in the opposite direction, worse. I don't. He can't hide anymore, Greg. And I'm not saying he's intentionally trying to, but I mean, the spotlight is on him. I mean, they maxed him.
Yeah.
They maxed him. They didn't max Jimmy. We know the reasons why. We understood the reasons why. He's younger. He anchors their defense. He is their floor to a certain degree, but there was no floor tonight. It dropped out. It was a trapdoor. I mean, 0 of 6. 0 of 6. I mean, I don't care what else he's doing on the floor. 0 of 6. 25 minutes. I even Bam FC, which we know people we are Bam supporters here, and there's this contingent on Twitter who thinks that that we're overly critical. I mean, I don't know how this is justified tonight. I mean,
no,
in
you know
his
what
head,
Jimmy
what is
leaving, what Jimmy being out of the picture does for Bam is that, like, you see the last 2 games he went against New Orleans, he had 23, 10, and 9. Against Indiana, he had 28 rebounds. Just, I'm giving you an idea. Tonight, 4 points and 8 rebounds, 0 of 6. So it was a complete stinker. When you don't have Jimmy Butler around anymore, you can't have those games. That's out of the picture now. And so you're right in that a different spotlight is now going to be on Bam going forward. He's going to have to rise to the occasion in terms of the consistency night over night. He has to be an everyday player, like Pat talks about, that there's those different guys, like all the time guys. He had some sort of and diatribe about the different players, some of the time players, all of the time players. Bam has to be an all of the time player, and this road trip is going to be huge for him, like, because this is kind of setting the tone for a post Jimmy era, and it has not gotten off to a great start.
No, it hasn't, and you're right. It's not enough to anchor the defense anymore. It's just not. I mean, they don't have enough offensive options on this team. And honestly, the odds of them getting one in return for Jimmy aren't great. I mean, we talk about, we'll do plenty of pods on this, and you should listen to this pod that I did with Sedano today, and he went off on everybody, by the way. George didn't spare the Heat, didn't spare Jimmy's camp. Okay, you can make your own decision. We're trying to provide some different viewpoints here. We're going to have Evan Cohen, who is as good as it gets about breaking down trade scenarios. He just loves doing this stuff. He's been a longtime radio host. He's going to join me tomorrow morning, and I'm going to have Vinny Goodwill, who is with Yahoo, national reporter, has been on with us many times and knows Jimmy and that situation, so he can give a little bit more of Jimmy's perspective on this. And then we're going to have our guy Rohan, who believes that the Heat should have paid Jimmy. So we're not hiding perspectives here. We're going to try to give you everything. But as we go through some of these trade pods, we talk about some of these players, the odds of them ultimately getting an Ingram, a Fox, some of these people that we're talking about, I mean, they're not great. Okay. I mean, it's more likely they're going to get a player who's not as good as Jimmy right now. But that's going to be in exchange for additional flexibility going forward, and also clearing what's become a headache. And so they're going to need the scoring, they're going to need the scoring. And like this team, I mean, it's Tyler basically right now. It's Tyler, and then whatever they get from Duncan shooting. Terry is a zero-sum game. Like if he plays better, it's not making you better. It's that we've just seen this.
The other guy too is Haywood Highsmith. He's really falling off a cliff lately.
Defensively, I was when I could actually stomach to watch this in the first quarter. We're watching Haywood. I'm not used to seeing Haywood getting beat off the dribble like he got beaten off the dribble tonight. Again, I'm always loath to say something's a protest game or a boycott game or anything like that. Sometimes your spirits are just broken. You're not in the right place. You're not playing well as a team. It starts to snowball. You start to press. Maybe guys feel they need to do more now because they know Jimmy's not coming back. We don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes between Jimmy and the players too. He had relationships with a lot of these guys for a long period of time. So there's a lot of possibilities, and eventually more and more of this will come out. But they looked broken and lost tonight. To me, it's more than just that they look like not good enough. Like they have enough players to compete with the Utah Jazz at home. Like
exactly.
Right. I mean, losing by 36 they got outscored 40-19 in the second, 36-25 in the third, and they gave up. And they didn't score 34. They had a bunch of G League guys. Like Kashad Johnson was in, Josh Christopher was on. They brought in Larson. Burks played a little bit, but they gave up 30. They gave up 40, 36, and 38 in the last three quarters. What is this?
I don't know what to say, because this is a team that prides itself on defense, and they just, this is this perpetual wheel we've seen with this group where they've been up a few games over 500 and then they slide back down, and now we're on that decline again, it seems, with 2 straight losses. The headspace of this team is questionable, and I think that that's something we have to watch now. You have to not take it for granted that they can just play on from this situation, and it's why I've kind of been screaming from the rooftops that I think they need to get this over with fast. And I know that there's so many reasons why it's not probably prudent to move quickly with the Jimmy scenario, but I think it's going to impact the team. I just think he was too much of the face of everything they did. He was the loudest voice. He always kind of took up all the air in the room when he was there. And it's an adjustment when that guy leaves, and they're going to keep getting questions, and it's going to be hard if they're not winning games. So I don't know. I just think that this is something to really watch, and maybe they'll decide that it doesn't matter and they'll just let it go on. But it makes me start to even more feel like they got to get this done while the suspension period is on. Like that's kind of the window for me. I know a lot of people are thinking further out, but this can't get too many more of these before you start to feel like you got to do something to, maybe, if it's nothing else, Ethan, it's take that $48 million that Jimmy's making and inject it back into the rotation with functional players that can play, because, they're not necessarily that talented where you can lose Jimmy and just, cope with it.
Well, that's the balance here, though, is it worth sacrificing the season to make sure you don't do something imprudent? And that's what they're going to have to figure out here, because you and I both push, and I've got to acknowledge, for them to do something to save last season and make a trade for Rozier and clear out Lowry's contract. And as it turned out, it was the wrong move. It was the wrong move. But we were both in on it. And now looking back, you much would have rather just even sent Kyle home if he didn't want to be around anymore, and let his contract expire, and then sort of move it. And so we're in the same spot with Jimmy, except it's a bigger number and he's a louder voice. I mean, he's a higher profile player at this stage of his career compared to what Kyle was. And you don't want to do the next Rozier trade. And then you're constantly trying to unwind it. That's kind of where I come down with, like, okay, I'm okay being a little bit patient here. And that's why I know Sean Rochester, others on network, like, don't let tonight affect anything. So it's a tough call, because this is really a stretch of the schedule, even though they're going on the road where they're playing a lot of weaker teams, and it was kind of a chance to build up some wins. So the timing of all this is bad in that regard. And I just wonder who is going to pull this thing together, because I hate to say it, because I love the guy. I think he represents the community tremendously in the organization. I just don't think Bam's the one to do it. He's in his own head too much.
His individual struggles make it tough for him to now just pivot and think about how to also get the team on track. He's trying to figure himself out.
Right. I mean, ultimately, it may end up having to be Tyler is the only one who could do it, I guess. But then you're asking a lot of him at this stage of his career. And I don't know how he's affected by this whole situation. Anyway, let's get to it. We're going to do this real quick here, these next two segments. Play of the night.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
All right, I'm just going to say it's one of the Bryce Sensabaugh blow-bys, right? It has to be, or his threes.
Shout out to Bryce Sensabaugh for 34 points on 12 of 18 shooting in the Heat's building. the Heat don't have any plays to reference. There was some early stuff where Nico had some hit-ahead passes that led to some fun plays, but this was a Bryce Sensabaugh show.
I just want to point this out. Rozier tonight played 18 minutes and 21 seconds. He had no assists. All right, let's roll the Defending the House segment, Greg.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
No one, obviously. But Greg, this stat is just remarkable. I don't even know how this is possible. So the Heat got outscored by 36, okay? And yet outscored the Jazz 20-9 in fast break points, which means that they gave up 127 points in the half court.
Oh,
I don't even know how that's possible. All right. Anyway, I think did Alex and Brady just open the door behind me? Anyway, this has been one of those nights. All right, we're gonna get out of here. Dreadful performance. There we go. We got points of view. There you go. See, there are actually 3 people work tonight, at least. Dear at the Heat's house.
I lost my joy.
Actually, lost. We're trying to find our.
Everyone's
joy.
lost their joy. The show is over.
Trying to find our joy here.
I'm gonna send them to Sacramento. Anyway, Greg, we appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks to our sponsors, Real Estate Shop. Also, we always mention Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. Also, I'm now forgetting about other spots. I don't want to do that. C-urbanstaffing.com and of course insurancebyLynette.com. Podcast with Evan Cohen tomorrow.